General Hospital will reveal Trina and Kai had once been strangers, but every moment they spent together ignited a deep and undeniable connection. From fleeting touches to lingering glances, their feelings grew in silence, unspoken yet unmistakable. Kai, once a proud and promising athlete, had his future stolen by a devastating injury. The weight of that loss crushed him, leaving behind frustration and despair. Yet in the darkest of days, Trina had been his light. She listened when no one else did, offering words of encouragement that reached the depths of his wounded soul. In her presence, he felt understood, seen, and for the first time in a long while, not alone. What began as quiet support soon evolved into something deeper, something neither of them could deny. On the night of Trina's birthday, their emotions reached a breaking point. The warmth of the celebration, the soft glow of the lights, and the happiness reflected in Trina's eyes made it impossible for Kai to look away. Trina, too, felt the shift between them, the pull of something she could no longer resist. When the party faded into the background, they slipped away together, as if drawn by an unseen force. Beneath the silent sky, bathed in the moon's soft silver light, they gave in to what had been building for so long. Their lips met in a kiss that was more than just an embrace, it was a fusion of longing, passion, and the unshakable truth of what they had become to each other. In that moment, the world around them ceased to exist. Everything about the night felt so natural, as if this was exactly where they were meant to be. Kai traced the contours of Trina's face as if memorizing every detail, while she reveled in the warmth of his arms, the safety of his presence. They surrendered to the intensity of their emotions, allowing passion to take over, believing that nothing could be more right than this. But happiness can be fleeting, and as the first rays of dawn crept into the sky, reality struck with a cruelty neither of them could have foreseen. Curtis and Portia had spent years burying their fears, convincing themselves that their past mistakes would never resurface. They had hidden a truth so devastating that they believed time itself would erase it. But when Curtis laid eyes on Kai that morning, his entire world unraveled. A cold, paralyzing dread gripped him as he pieced together the unthinkable. His mind raced, memories aligning in a horrifying sequence. No. It couldn't be. Not Kai. But the truth stood before him, undeniable and inescapable. Kai was not a stranger. He was the long-lost son, the twin brother Trina never knew existed. The revelation shattered everything, turning what was once a beautiful love story into a nightmare too horrifying to comprehend. Curtis and Portia had believed that by burying this secret, they could protect their family, shielding Trina from a painful truth they thought would never surface. They had convinced themselves that their silence was an act of love, that some secrets were better left untold. But in reality, all they had done was build a ticking time bomb, one that had now detonated in the most devastating way possible, dragging everyone into an irreversible catastrophe. The moment of truth unraveled like a cruel twist of fate. Every stolen glance, every whispered word, every touch that had once felt so right now felt like a terrible mistake, one that could never be undone. The love that had blossomed between them, the deep connection they had forged, had been real. And that was what made the truth unbearable. This wasn't just an illusion or a fleeting infatuation, it was something pure, something that had grown from a place of trust, comfort, and undeniable passion. But now, that love had been stripped of its beauty, twisted into something dark, something forbidden. How could they possibly accept this reality? How could they erase the memories of that night, the way they had surrendered to each other, believing they had found something rare and true? The echoes of their laughter, the warmth of their embrace, the tenderness in their kiss, all of it was now tainted by a truth neither of them had seen coming. The weight of the revelation crushed them, suffocating them with a sense of horror so profound that it left them gasping for air. Trina wasn't just losing her first love, she was losing the sense of security that had once grounded her. The people she trusted most, the ones who were supposed to protect her, had instead deceived her in the most unforgivable way. Curtis and Portia had stolen from her the chance to know the truth before it was too late. They had played with fate, thinking they could control it, but now their lies had destroyed everything. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound, because it came from the very people who were supposed to love her unconditionally. And Kai, what was he supposed to do with this? The girl he had fallen for, the one who had made him feel whole again after all his pain, was someone he was never meant to love. The connection they had shared, the solace they had found in each other, had turned into a curse. There was no way to undo what had already been done, no way to erase the feelings that had been so real. They were trapped in a cruel paradox, desperate to forget, but unable to ignore the truth. The weight of their forbidden love would haunt them forever, a reminder of a past that could never be rewritten. Portia and Curtis might try to explain, might try to justify their actions with desperate words, but nothing could change the undeniable truth. They had hidden Kai's existence for years, believing they were doing what was best, but in reality, they had doomed their daughter to a fate more painful than any of them could have imagined. They had made a choice for Trina, a choice they had no right to make, and in doing so, they had taken away her ability to control her own destiny. Their deception had not protected her, it had destroyed her. For years, they had convinced themselves that the past was buried, that their secret would remain hidden forever. They had told themselves that Kai would never return, that Trina would never have to know. But fate had a cruel way of unraveling lies, and now, the very thing they had feared most had come crashing down around them. There was no way to undo the damage, no way to turn back time and erase what had happened. The moment the truth was exposed, Trina's world was shattered beyond recognition. Trina would never be able to forgive them. Not just because they had lied to her, but because of the sheer cruelty of their deception. They had stolen her right to know the truth about her own life. They had allowed her to walk blindly into a situation that would leave her broken, unable to recognize the world she thought she knew. If they had been honest from the beginning, she would never have allowed herself to feel what she felt for Kai. She would never have looked at him the way she did. Never would have let him touch her, hold her, kiss her. Never would have given herself to him, believing that what they shared was real, was meant to be. Now, every moment they had spent together felt like a lie, a cruel joke played by fate. The memories that had once made her heart race with excitement now filled her with nausea and dread. Every stolen glance, every whispered word, every touch, they were all tainted by the horrifying truth. She had not just fallen in love. She had fallen in love with her own brother. The realization clawed at her chest, making it hard to breathe, making it impossible to think. And Kai, how was he supposed to process this? The girl he had longed for, the one who had brought light into his life when he needed it most, was someone he was never meant to love. The connection they had built, the feelings they had embraced so freely, now felt like chains tightening around their throats. There was no way to erase what had already happened. No way to undo the love they had felt, the desire they had given into. The weight of it all threatened to crush him, suffocating him under the unbearable reality. Their emotions, once so pure and beautiful, were now twisted into something grotesque, something that could never be undone. The love that had once felt like a gift now felt like a curse. Trina and Kai were trapped in a cruel paradox, desperate to erase the past yet unable to deny the truth of what they had felt for each other. No matter how much they wanted to turn back time, no matter how much they wished they had never met, there was no escaping what had already been done. The betrayal ran too deep. Portia and Curtis had thought they were protecting their daughter, but in the end, they had only ensured her destruction. Trina had lost more than just a lover, she had lost her sense of self, her trust in the people who were supposed to love her unconditionally. How could she ever look at them the same way again? How could she ever believe anything they said when their greatest secret had nearly ruined her? And Kai, what was he supposed to do now? How was he supposed to look at Trina, knowing that what had once been his greatest happiness had turned into an unspeakable nightmare? How was he supposed to move forward, knowing that the one person who had ever made him feel whole was someone he could never have? The weight of their forbidden love would haunt them forever, a ghost lingering in the shadows of their memories, reminding them of what they had lost and what could never be. No matter how much they tried to deny it, no matter how far they tried to run, the truth remained. Unchanging, inescapable, and merciless. It was a reality neither of them could erase, no matter how desperately they wished they could rewrite the past. Trina and Kai would have no choice but to face the horrifying revelation that had shattered their world. But could they survive it? Could they find a way to move forward, to exist beyond the devastation that had consumed them? Or would this pain become their undoing, a wound so deep it would never heal? Would the weight of their grief, their shame, their regret be too much to bear? Every memory of love would now be a source of torment, every stolen moment a reminder of what they could never have again. The connection that had once brought them comfort would now become the very thing that haunted them. Trina, once so certain of her place in the world, now found herself lost in a nightmare she could never have imagined. She had already endured heartbreak, betrayal, and uncertainty, but nothing had prepared her for this. Nothing could have braced her for the agony of knowing that the person who had made her feel safe, wanted, and loved was someone she was never meant to be with. The thought of erasing Kai from her heart felt impossible, yet the idea of holding on was unbearable. Kai, who had found solace in Trina during his darkest moments, was now drowning in a reality that left him gasping for air. He had allowed himself to believe in something beautiful, something worth holding on to, only to have it ripped away in the cruelest way possible. How was he supposed to look at Trina now? How was he supposed to pretend that what they shared had never happened? Could he simply erase his feelings, as if they had never existed? They were trapped in an impossible fate, torn between what had been and what could never be. Would they have the strength to rise above it? Or would the pain consume them, leaving them broken beyond repair, haunted forever by the love they could never reclaim? The mistakes of Portia and Curtis's past had led Trina and Kai into an unimaginable tragedy. What should have been a simple truth, one that should have been revealed long ago, had been buried beneath years of deception, and now, the weight of that lie had crushed them completely. Their choices, their love, their moments of intimacy, all of it had been built on a foundation of falsehoods. They had fallen deeply for each other, unaware that they were bound by blood. And now, knowing the truth, the horror of what they had done was unbearable. The realization that they had unknowingly shared something so sacred, only to have it turn into something shameful, was a torment neither of them could escape. Trina, who had only just begun to pick up the pieces of her life after the devastation of losing Spencer, now found herself plunged into a new and even darker abyss. The grief she had barely survived had been replaced by something far worse, a pain that made her question everything about herself, about her past, and about the people who had shaped her life. Spencer's death had already taken a part of her soul, but now, this new revelation threatened to destroy what was left. The thought of what she and Kai had done, believing they were simply two people in love, made her physically ill. How could she ever forgive herself? How could she ever move past this? The love that had once made her heart soar now filled her with an unbearable sense of disgust and despair. Kai, too, was drowning in a torment unlike anything he had ever experienced. He had trusted Trina with his heart, had found comfort and healing in her presence. She had been the one person who had truly seen him, the one who had pulled him from his darkest moments and made him believe in something again. But now, all of that was gone, twisted into something he could never undo. The memories of their passion, their closeness, now felt like a curse, an inescapable nightmare that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He couldn't erase what had happened. He couldn't pretend that his love for her had never existed. But he also couldn't look at her the same way, knowing what they had unknowingly done. As much as they both wanted to run from the truth, it was now a part of them, etched into their souls in a way that could never be erased. No matter how much they tried to separate themselves from what had happened, the reality remained. They had loved each other in a way that was forbidden, in a way that could never be undone. The shame and horror of it threatened to consume them both. For Trina, the future that once held so much promise now seemed bleak and empty. How could she ever move forward knowing that the people she trusted most had failed her in the worst way? How could she ever trust again, love again, or even look at herself in the mirror without feeling disgusted? The pain of losing Spencer had already left her broken, and now, this revelation had shattered what little remained. Her life was spiraling downward, and there was no way to stop it. The mistakes of Portia and Curtis had led her here, had stolen her sense of identity, her peace, her ability to love without fear. Trina had been strong through heartbreak before, but this time, the damage might be irreversible. The weight of the past, the agony of the truth, and the unbearable shame of what she and Kai had unknowingly done might be too much for her to bear. Her future was no longer her own. It was stained with tragedy, haunted by loss, and forever defined by a truth she could never escape.